Hello, hello, hello. This is Mark Fisher with our Scientology Stories, Peeling the Onion, and I'm here with my co-host,
Commander Janice Gillham Grady.
Oh my gosh, you've got your Sea Org cap. Where did you get that?
I found it at my sister's.
Was that hers?
No, I think it was my dad's, and I don't know how he got it because he wasn't an officer in the Sea Org when he was in.
Wow. It would have been Peter, your brothers, or anything like that?
I have no idea. Anyway, I was over at her place and I saw it. I said, I'm borrowing this.
Well, I salute you. Okay. You're going to wear it the whole time? It's up to you.
We'll see.
We'll see. Okay, great.
Let's bring on our fellow crew members, Karry and
Absolutely.
Scott Campbell.
Well, again, this video is the next part in our series on the Freewinds, and we've got some great guests again, and it's like you said, Janice, it's Scott and Karry Campbell. How are you doing, guys?
Oh, good morning.
Hey.
Hey, salute, everybody.
Hi.
Salute. Hand salute. 2.
That's right.
It's been too long.
I saw the look on your face backstage when I put that on.
And Janice outranked us all
That's
anyway.
great. I like that.
She outranked us all anyway. So
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah. In or out of the
Anyway,
series.
I think I feel a little silly.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh, put it back on. We like it.
No, it's all right. You
All
can
right.
Janice.
It's excellent.
There we go.
There you go.
Get my
Commander
veins
Grady.
out of my eyes.
There we go.
Well, if you feel like taking it off anytime, you can. So no problem. Or if you want to leave it on, that's okay too.
Yeah, I'll probably take it off when I get to my ethics situation, when I get in trouble.
That's
Okay,
right.
great.
That's
Well,
right.
for our viewers out there, this is going to be a little bit more of a darker video. You know, we've told the stories about the maiden voyage and getting ready for the ship ready and the Freewinds and all that. And last time it was life on the ship with Scott and Karry, and they're telling all that story. But this is going to be shortly. Well, it's going to start first before Janice left the Sea Organization, but then after we left in 1990, things got darker and darker on the Freewinds, and ethics became much heavier. And there were some escapes, and we're going to show you a short video interview with somebody who actually had a very daring escape from the Freewinds. So you look forward to that. That'll be coming up here shortly in the video. But anyway, we're ready to get started. Janice, where do you want to start this?
All right. Well, let's start this where in 1990, early 1990, Milt Wolf was the commanding officer of the ship, and he'd gotten in trouble for gambling and drinking, and I'd mentioned that in the last one. And so I was sent to the ship to cover his job. So my position was commanding officer ship. So I was the senior of the captain and the commanding officer of the service hog, the ship service hog. And meanwhile, my husband was on a mission in Clearwater to the Flag Service Org. And while he was there, he had a mission second who I guess fell in love with him. And he had reported up that David Miscavige was the WHO of the problems with the Flag Service Org in Clearwater. So he became a number one target. And one day
explain to everybody what a WHO means.
A WHO means someone who is the cause of something happening, usually a bad situation. So he became a target, and he called me one day. I was, on the ship, and he calls me and he says, "Don't believe a word they say. They're trying to accuse me of having an affair with my mission second." And I said that Miscavige was the cause of what's going on with the blunting of the purpose of the Flag Service Org. So I'm being recalled back to the Gold Base, Int Base. And I said, okay, no problems. Anyway, so he goes back. Next thing I know is a mission shows up on the ship with Milt Wolf. They quickly pushed him through his cleanup to come and replace me. Now, I'm not in trouble as far as I know. I was there just for 3 months covering for Milt. Stats were doing fine. We did have a problem with trying to get OT7 completions out of the flag service org and getting them to the ship so that we could deliver OT8 to them. And I felt that the ship should actually have that responsibility of completing the OT7s and getting them through their setups for OT8. And I mentioned that. Yes, Gary.
Your microphone. Something's
Yeah, your
going
microphone's breaking up, Janice. When you move your hands, for some reason, it's breaking up.
Oh, okay. I'll keep my hands still. Okay. All right.
We're gonna have to hog tie you, I guess, or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Just joking, everybody. I'm not being serious. Anyway, go ahead.
So anyway, this mission shows up with Milt, and I knew I was in trouble because they didn't come and brief me. They kind of ignored me, and I'm like, hey, and there's Milt. They didn't want me to turn over to him. And the next thing you know, I'm handed my ticket to go back to the base. And I'm like, okay, this must be something from Paul getting in trouble. So I get up in the morning to catch the morning flight out of Aruba. And the ethics officer, I've forgotten his name. He's actually the HCO chief, the HAS. He was there ready to escort me all the way back to Los Angeles from Aruba. I'm like, why do I have an escort? I can manage to get back there by myself. Yeah. So when we land in Miami, I'm like, this is pissing me off that they don't trust me because Paul's in trouble. So when we get to Miami, I'm thinking, my sister's in Miami because she'd blown in January, just 2 months before I left the ship. So we didn't have cell phones and beepers and pages and that type of thing. So I'm like, how can I shake this guy so I can try and find my sister's, the Gamboa phone number in Miami and see if I can get a hold of her. Because if I got a hold of her, I would have taken a taxi from Miami airport. Because just the thought that they don't trust me and they're escorting me, that really got me thinking, where the hell are things going? So anyway, I couldn't shake this guy. And even going into the bathroom, I'd come out thinking, okay, maybe I can make a run for it. Nope, he was right there. He was not going to let me go anywhere. So we finally get to Los Angeles, and he wouldn't leave me until the courier arrived to pick me up from the LAX airport. Then I get back to the base, and I'm met by the ethics officer. And she's like, and I'm like, where's Paul? And they're like, well, you don't have to worry about Paul. I'm like, no, I want to know, where is Paul? And she wouldn't tell me. And I'm yelling at her, and DM and Mark Yeager are coming up the hill. Everyone's now at the base at a tape play, listening to an LRH tape play. Mm-hmm. So they come up the hill, and they say hello, and I said hello, and I said, this little bitch won't tell me where Paul is. And they're kind of like, well, why not? Anyway, then I find out that Paul's he's at the OGH, at the old Gillham house, in ethics trouble, and he's been on the decks. And so the next day, nobody knows what to do with me because I wasn't, as far as I knew, I wasn't in trouble. And they called me back because Paul was in trouble. So I just went on the decks and started doing deck work with Paul because I'd been replaced on my job as I was either chief officer of the CMO, or at this time I was the watchdog committee for the flag service org that I'd been replaced on. Yeah.
Did they not tell you that you were, in ethics trouble or anything like that?
No.
No.
I wasn't in ethics trouble. I'd done nothing wrong. I was a watchdog committee member.
Do you remember who the MAA was? Do you remember who it was?
A little Australian girl called Jasmine.
Oh, okay.
She'd come up. Yeah. Anyway, so
I know the feeling, Janice. You probably never had seen this young girl before in your life, and she's trying to handle you, who works over on Hubbard 6 hours a day, 7 days a week for like a dozen years, and here comes somebody who doesn't know, like, oh, you can't tell you what you're
exactly.
What are you doing?
Well, as Amy would always say, nobody wanted to have to deal with me, you know. But anyway, so I just started work on the decks with Paul, and then Greg Hughes comes up to me one day and says, "Oh, you're under COMEV. That's a committee of evidence where they're supposed to be a fact-finding body." And so I was like, "Why am I being COMEV'd?" And he said, "Well, here's all the charges." And I'm like, "What?" And then he's like, "Well, you need to come to the COMEV." I said, "No, I'm not coming." And then he didn't know what to say. And then he comes back and says, "You need to come to the COMEV." And I said, "No, I'm not coming." And he says, "Well, if you don't show up for your committee of evidence, you know you'll be declared." And I'm like, "Well, declare me then." And so I was a particle that nobody knew what to do with. And meanwhile, they'd taken Paul off and put him back in the rehabilitation project force. And then I'll continue the rest of that story another time, because now we're going to go back to the Freewinds. But this is just, to me, an indicator of where things started to go. And it wasn't a good go. So, Scott, over to you to pick up on what started happening at the Freewinds.
Well, so during that time, I remember when you were there on the ship, and didn't know that it was because Milt was in trouble, you know. But you know, we knew that something was going on, and you were the interim CO ship, you know. And so basically, what was happening for us is I had gotten promoted in 1990 to be the interim organizing officer, which is the deputy chief engineer. So then I was on the executive council of the ship, and I could see what was happening from that viewpoint, you know. And one of the things that happened towards the end of 1990 was they had a mission come. It was Ian Cunningham, WDC ship at the time. He was, you know, watchdog committee.
Right.
And he came in and gave us a briefing about the upper bridge, which was OT5 through OT7, and then also OT8 was included in that. And he said there were some missing rundowns, which are steps that you would do in the spiritual counseling, and that everyone, all of the ship public, was going to have to go back and do those missing rundowns, and then come back through OT5, 6, and 7, and then do an expanded version of OT8 on the ship. And in that executive council meeting, I was sitting right across from the technical secretary for the flagship service org. And she looked at him and she said, "This doesn't make any sense. There would have to be some gross out tech on the line in order for that to happen." And he said, this is a quote, direct quote from him. He said, "It's a mind fuck. I know you can't think with it, but we've got to keep the bodies in the shop." And as he said that, he was pounding the conference table, you know, and it really like shocked everybody. And her and I were looking at each other like, what the hell? Got to keep the bodies in the shop? Is that what we're doing here? You know, we thought we were clearing the planet. So it was kind of this rude awakening, you know, but it didn't wake up.
Just so people know, bodies in the shop is basically a Scientology term, means public on the ship, people there doing services. You call it bodies in the shop. It's not like we were freightering bodies.
Yeah. They're in coffins.
You know, it's funny because I kind of started to wake up at that point. And but as I looked around the table, this is a joint executive council meeting with the executive council of the Freewind Ship Org and the flagship service org. Most of the people were just nodding like automatons, you know. You know, there were for me, it broke the spell, but they were still under the spell, you know. And then after that, you know, the way to keep the bodies in the shop and to keep the ship booked up with passengers, the emphasis shifted from OT8 to conventions and seminars, and you know, it's Medical Professionals Week, Artists Week, Italy Week, things like it. It had everything. It had Roadside Sales Professionals Week, you know, and so that was our new operating basis, and it kind of worked, but not really that much. I mean, I don't know if you guys uplands were privy to all the stuff that they were trying on the ship, or not.
No, well, I was on the decks, or I'd gone by then.
I remember
Yeah.
they came up with these lecture courses, but I think they did that, you know, shortly after the maiden voyage, so that the OT8s would have something to do when they weren't in session.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they had these lectures, you know, courses and stuff.
No.
But I think what?
Yeah, when I was there, as I said, we did have trouble trying to get new people in for OT8 because we had to depend on the flag service organ in Clearwater. And that's where I kept saying, you need to give the ship the responsibility, just like everybody else. You got to do your own preps to move them on to the next level. You can't depend on another organization. They're not going to let the people go.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I kept pushing. And then instead, I guess they came up with all this other stuff.
You know, the other thing too, if you think about it, you know, it's like a funnel. Scientology's bridge is like a funnel. You've got everybody, you know, beginning at the top, everybody's at the bottom of the bridge. And as you get higher and higher, there's less and less people that you can deliver the OT levels to. So there are OT7 takes a long time to do. And then before you went on OT8, you had to do what they called, you know, setups, which were basically sec checks and things like that to make sure that you weren't a security risk. And then
no, it's to make money.
Yeah.
Well, I know that, but once you got through that, then you could go to the ship. Then you could go to the ship and do OT8, which took like 2 weeks, right? It was a really fast level. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're basically reducing the amount of people that can come on this multi-million-dollar ship. And so you run out of them after a while because there's just not that many people that are moving through the bridge, right?
Right. Exactly. And what was occurring too was they were coming up with like new and creative ways to get money out of the people, and you know, supposedly to handle their ethics. So they came up with this thing called the OT debug service, where if you were stalled in your progress to get through your OT levels and get onto OT8, they would bring you to the ship and put you through an ethics program, right? You know, which was it was fine, but there was one aspect of it that was, you know, they were using it to what's called crush reg people. Crush registration is where you use their ethics data against them, or their PC folder data, their case data that they've told priest penitent
confidential data.
Counselor, yeah, some confidential data that you've told a counselor that would use that against them to get them to make big donations and pay for whatever their next step on the bridge or whatever service was available. And then it would also always include a donation to the International Association of Scientologists, and they would encourage them to up their status to the next level, you know, or just make a big donation, whatever they could give, you know. And that was heavily emphasized, and was emphasized to the degree that they would have these all hands regging events and stuff, where crew members who normally didn't do that for their posts, including Karry, you know, they're trying to squeeze money out of the people. And for us, it was just a wake-up call where it was becoming more and more apparent that it was all about the money and much less about the person's well-being.
And that's an excellent point, Scott, because that's something that Janice and I noticed after we left, that all of a sudden it wasn't about getting people up the bridge, students trained, auditors made, counseling given. Instead, it was, how much money can you donate to Scientology? How much can you donate to the International Association of Scientologists? It was building up a big financial war chest, which goes on to this day. It wasn't about delivering Scientology to the public.
Right.
I have to say too that Paul, their husband Paul, was actually, I would say, one of the first people, besides, the other one would be David Mayo, to recognize that David Miscavige, the problem went all the way to and came from the very top, which was David Miscavige. He called it,
Yeah, people did recognize, but Paul was the first one to report it to his mission ops.
Stick his head up. He was the mole that stuck his head up for it to be whacked.
Oh no. Yeah.
So of course they had to make up reasons to, come down on him. And so it's like, so his mission second falls in love with him. That doesn't mean he had any feelings for her, but of course he made her fall in love with him.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Well, so what happened after you guys left was, the next maiden voyage anniversary, which was 1991, they released the Key to Life and Life Orientation courses on the ship. And, ostensibly, they were fantastic courses for the individual. But then, the church weaponized those because, people were having incredible wins on their ability to understand and comprehend virtually anything. And then they were also finding out what their most coveted purpose in life was. And they were changing their lives based on that, And the problem is they were going off the reservation. They weren't working for a World Institute of Scientology Enterprises company anymore. They weren't, living to make donations to the church. They were living their best life all of a sudden, right? Well, Miscavige and company, they couldn't have that, so they I'll let Karry tell this part, but they ordered Karry to bring all of the Key to Life and Life Orientation students back to the ship in order to change what they call the end phenomena, the desired result of doing those two courses.
So, yeah, this was very upsetting time, of course, when I was on the ship. Is basically, as I was basically at the end just doing LOC, and I had 300 plus people come by and complete, and were winning and doing what they wanted to do as their hat in life right, not on the ship. But so I was ordered to bring back all the different people and have them get a post of some sort. It is not their hat in life. It was like, what could they do to support Scientology, basically. It wasn't what the purpose of the course was for.
So you're talking about public Scientologists that paid for it, did the course. They had gone back home to wherever they lived. And the idea was to pull them back because they needed to change the purpose that they were supposed to have gotten from the course.
Right. So I basically, when they came back, I said, okay, they don't like it for some reason, but are you doing well? Are you producing what you want to produce? What we're going to do is we're going to change the wording so that they accept it better and can understand it, helping Scientology in some way. But you're doing what you're going to do. we're not changing anything. We're just changing the wording. And you know what? If there's something that back in the real world wasn't working, let's add that in there so that we can figure it out and make it so that you're 100%. So
it was basically like Karry, you know, she led a little kind of white mutiny against the church by, you know, just rewording, you know, what the person's had in life was.
So it was acceptable.
So it was acceptable. And then,
Well,
of course,
Karry,
at some point, somebody got sect checked, and they confessed that. And then Karry's sent to the bilges, you know, and you know.
I love the bilges. I'm sorry. It was a break.
Karry, you did what I would have done.
Yeah.
What explain to everybody who's watching the bilges, Scott. What is the bilges, and what did that entail?
The bilges are the very bottom part of the ship. It's under the deck plates, and it's where any oil leaks coming off the machines or leaks from pumps, the pump packings and stuff, which is often their seawater pumps and stuff, that accumulates down there. And it's basically just filthy and slimy, and you know, it's generally unpleasant to be there. So they use that as a punishment. They would send people down there, and actually, you know, now that you mention that, that was becoming more prevalent. Like we would see, you know, top church executives, the international executives, you know, when they were there, would get sent down to the bilges to work in, you know, in those horrible conditions. You know, it's hot, it's dirty, smells, it's really unpleasant, you know, including, you know, the sort of the highest goal for any executive director of any organization in Scientology was to get St. Hill size. St. Hill is the Mecca of Scientology in England, you know, and it's a big castle, you know, and that was the goal. You know, if all the Class 5 orgs can get to St. Hill size, then OT9 would be released, you know. So the first one to do that in the modern era was the Orange County organization. We live in Orange County right now, and it was John Woodward. He was the executive director.
John Woodruff,
yeah, sorry. And you know, they had the LRH birthday game event where they celebrate LRH's birthday, and then all of the organizations, and see who did the best job of getting towards St. Hill size, right? Well, so Orange County Org had actually achieved that. So they had a big ceremony. John Woodruff was brought on stage. They gave him a big trophy that was actually a replica of the St. Hill Castle. And, you know, it was a fantastic accomplishment, right? The next thing we knew, within weeks of that, he was on the ship and in the bilges. And it was like, what the hell's going on here? You know, it's classic that you punish good performance and reward bad performance. What are you going to get? You're going to get bad performance, you know? So that stuff was shocking, you know?
Well, and then there were other people too, right? Did you mention like other people sent, like senior executives? Do you have any names?
Mark Yeager, Guillaume Lesev. They had Heber. Heber was on the ship. Heber Gents one time was on. They had him down in the bilges, you know?
You know, it's almost like I'm just thinking about this. It's just a way of Miscavige maintaining his control over the people under him, including the people in charge of these large organizations, to go, oh, you may think you're number one, but guess what, buddy? I'm the boss. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like going, I still have control over you. You're going to go scrub the bilges and scrape the bilges until I say you come out, you know?
Right.
That's
yeah,
great.
when they would do something like that, they would keep you down there until you had what they call a cognition, which would be some type of realization. And the realization, you know, inevitably was that, you know, I'm a piece of shit and I don't deserve to be in your company and whatever it is, and then they would, let you come out and now you could be back amongst the people, but having suffered that humiliation, So it's really a draconian type of punishment.
I guess the ship was used as the prison before they put the bars up and made the hole.
Yeah, because
at the international base,
Yes.
You're gonna jump overboard and swim however many miles to shore,
Right. So instead of paying all the fare to get them to the Caribbean, where the nice weather, relaxing feeling, instead just put some bars up on some old trailers, and that's a lot cheaper than flying people to the Caribbean.
Freewinds is
and
too
they
good
might
for
escape on the way.
Yeah, the Freewinds is too good for you. We're going to keep you in a hole and call it the hole, and then have seances, and then have you beat the crap out of each other to confess your crimes and to realize that David Miscavige is God. I mean, this is how insane. After we left, right, Janice? After we left, that it got. That's how insane Miscavige got. I mean, and we saw the writing on the wall in 1990. Of course, nobody else would, because you guys were the Freewinds and all that. And we went, we're gone. We're not going to put up with that crap, But it's really insane. And then, like I said, I know he used to brag about sending people to, when I was still there, they went down to the bilges and cleaned and scrubbed and they came out a better Sea Org member. You know what I mean?
Because he did that to the musicians or the shoot crew or something like that.
Right.
Yes.
He did it to the shoot crew for the Cine at Gold, and also the musicians, and they'd come out raving about it because they were able to actually do manual labor and not do, oh my God, what do I have to do to please Miscavige? They could actually do something that was physical that made them feel good,
I remember one time Mike was down there in the bilges, and Mike Render was down there, and and it's hot down there. It's 130 degrees or more, and he was looking pretty red faced and stuff, but he was working real hard, And I asked him if he was okay. He goes, Scott, this is like a vacation for me.
Exactly. That's so true.
Yeah.
How did the conditions get on the ship during that time period? Was there less and less money because there was less and less public, or how did it go at that point?
I can tell you what was happening, and Karry will give an example, right? Okay, so on the life orientation course, you have this section where you have to write up overits and withholds, which are your transgressions or sins, on all 21 departments of your personal org board. They have an organizing board that's 21 departments, and it's customized for an individual, and so you have to write up all of your transgressions regarding that as part of that life orientation course, right? Well, that was a gold mine for them, and it was shocking to Karry. And then me, when I started to find out about things, because Karry told me something that was particularly horrifying, but these guys were like, the people at the very top of the bridge, they were like committing insurance fraud, business fraud. They're doing all kinds of
real life.
Weird financial stuff in order
to paying their taxes, whatever, right?
Their taxes, or getting a bunch of credit cards, maxing them out, declaring bankruptcy, whatever it was, by hook and by crook to get to that level at the top of the bridge where they could do OT8, and and then plenty of other stuff too, whatever ethical transgressions you can imagine, they were doing that too, so, and you think it makes you think twice about it, like, wow, these are the most virtuous beings on the planet? I don't think so. I mean, one Karry, one guy wrote up something. I'll let Karry tell about that and what she did afterwards.
So one guy wrote up something in a different language. So I needed him to translate it for me. And he basically said that he buried a body somewhere. And I was like, what? What happened here? And he told me all the details and whatever, and he wrote it down, and I was like, okay, thank you very much for telling me.
It was essentially, he killed a 10-year-old boy and buried him in the woods, is what he confessed to on that thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
What did you do?
So I went down. I said, thank you very much. I had him go back to study and start on the next thing. But I went to ethics and I said, okay, so how did this person get vetted to be on the ship? You know, this is what's happening. You guys are in ethics. What are you going to do? So he got taken off the course and off the ship. But because he was like a liability there, and, you know, I don't know what they did to fix it or handle it or anything like that, but it was out of my jurisdiction, you know, and he didn't have any sorrow about it or anything, remorse, nothing. And I'm just like, this person is doing this LOC course, which is basically getting ethics in on your life and, you know, how to be more effective. So I want to make him more effective at killing people, or
No.
I was just like,
Yeah.
it was just like,
it
wasn't
basically like how did that person even
Get
on
there in the first place? Yeah.
Well, he shouldn't have even been on any organization lines at all. He should have been turned over to the Guardian's office or OSA.
You know what they told Karry when she made the complaint, and they said, well, it's not actionable. It wasn't a sec check. They said
it is actionable.
Janice, you know, he should have actually been reported to the police.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, that's why
They could have investigated that. Yeah.
Right.
That's why he should have been turned over to the Office of Special Affairs, who should have investigated and turned him over to the police.
Right.
Go find the body, give the parents relief.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
No, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, you know, Karry and I are a married couple. We're talking about stuff, and pretty soon we're putting two and two together, like
comparing notes.
This isn't what we thought it was. So we're waking up out of it, and then it became, how do we get out of here? You know, and I went so far as told, you know, in Scientology, you're always told if you have any connections with like any government organizations like the FBI or CIA or anything like that, it's in their security checks. You know, did anyone send you here? Were you sent by the CIA? Were you sent by the FBI? Whatever, those things are there. Well, my stepsister was in the FBI, very prominent, highly placed FBI agent, had thousands of people under her. I went and told them that. I told them my cousin on my dad's side was the deputy director of the U.S. Diplomatic Courier Service, very, very highly placed in the government. They didn't give a crap about that, But if I was a public, you could bet that they would have milked that for everything it was worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we were like trying to figure out, what our future was going to be, because clearly things weren't what we thought they were, so we were just kind of in limbo there for a little while,
Yeah. Now, were people starting to escape or to blow or anything like that? Crew members and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah,
that ever occurred while you were there?
Yeah, there was a pretty good attrition rate. Of people, and we weren't told why they would leave or anything, but we noticed so and so's gone. Some of them were pregnancies, and that was the reason. But other ones were, just the person just disappeared.
Right. Well, I know I'd heard of some, because the port captain's office holds all the passports, because when they sail from port to port, they need to show all the passports. So I know some people I'd heard, and even when we were on the Apollo, they would go to the local embassy and get a new passport made. So that's what I heard some people had done that had left the Freewinds. They'd gone to the embassy and gotten a passport and got the hell out of Dodge.
Right.
You know, and,
Yeah.
and at the same time, the pressure to keep the ship booked with passengers just increased. It went to the moon, you know.
Right.
You know, we had to, there was just different ideas for that. You know, they had us bring the promo and marketing unit to the ship so that they knew what it was like to be on a ship and could maybe promote the ship better. You know, that was one idea. They did the establishment steps for all of the ship booking offices. They were called flagship service consultant offices. We did that. You know, one of the things that was a hit with, I think, with Miscavige and a lot of the Sierra organizations was the officer training school. So that was ongoing. I think we actually got through all of the Sierra organizations, which wound up being, it seemed like, you know, thousands of people, you know, came through the ship and did the officer training school, you know. Yeah. So it was all kinds of stuff, you know, just to keep the ship full of people and making money, you know. And, you know, I in retrospect, you know, I realized that it was just, you know, like you pointed out earlier, Janice, it was basically a floating palace for the IAS.
Exactly.
It was there for the International Association of Scientologists, so they could be offshore and then meanwhile collect millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also, wasn't it also, I don't know, I heard stories about this. They had a maiden voyage reunion every year. And
every year.
It was party time for Miscavige and whoever he was bringing, because they'd have a new release. But I mean, I've heard stories about they had to keep dive boats available for Miscavige at every day, even if he wasn't going to go scuba diving, just to have them ready. Because if they didn't have them ready, he would throw a fit. You know, things like that. Is that true?
Well, Scott had to deal with that. Yes.
Yeah, I was basically their diving host. They would set up diving excursions. Sometimes I would have to go with the dive guide to the dive site to make sure, you know, what it was and if I thought it was safe and stuff. And then I would take David Miscavige and the other int execs out on these dive excursions. And
now
it was kind
that would be a great job.
Oh yeah, it was good. It was fun, you know, because you'd go out typically on a pretty big yacht, you know, out to the dive site. Very rarely did we go on like an actual dive boat, like a pontoon boat type of boat, you know. A lot of times it was on a big yacht. You know, I don't know how much time we have left, but I could tell a story of Miscavige.
Tell one story, and then we'll show the video that we've got. Go ahead.
But let me just intercept here that this big yacht and all these dive excursions were paid for by the IAS.
Yes.
It was not a
meaning by Scientologists, public. It was not his personal expense.
From the donations that had created bankruptcy for many Scientologists.
Tax exempt donations. Yeah.
And that's true. And the president of the IAS, Janet Light, would always come on the dive excursion. She wouldn't go diving, but she would always come because it was a yacht and they'd have, you know, hors d'oeuvres and different stuff to drink.
We know Janet. We know Janet very well. She had to have the whitest skin of anybody I ever saw in the Sea Organization. I couldn't imagine her being out in the sun because she would burn very easily. I'm not kidding, right? She was really, really white.
She'd be in the shade on the yacht.
Yeah.
But then the commanding officer of the Commodore's Messenger Organization, which was Jennifer Alpers, she would come on it too, you know. So the story, I'll give you an example. So we were in Barbados one time, and we're at the cruise ship dock, and then we're going to go out on a dive. So they had a big yacht off to where the pleasure boats were, ready for us. But it was too big to get back to the to the dock where we were going to pick up the int execs, right? So usually, so David Miscavige and me and Janet Light and Jennifer Alpers would go out to a larger boat in one boat, you know, and we'd have our dive, you know, David and I would have our dive gear and we'd go out there, you know. And this is one of those occasions. So we get taken out in a launch up to this big yacht, and then we're there. And then the rest of the int execs are going to get in the next launch to come out to the boat. And it's like Norman Starkey, Mark Yeager, Guillaume Lesev, you know, Mike Rinder, I think maybe, you know, like Greg Wilher,
Right.
you know, the int execs are there. And, you know, it's a step down off of the dock into this launch, right? So Norman Starkey's there. He's an older guy. He's overweight, you know, and he's kind of trepidatious about making this big step down into this boat, you know. And there's guys there that are waiting to help him, local islanders, you know, they're waiting to help him, but he doesn't want to do that. And David Miscavige sees that and he looks over and he goes, how come they're not getting into the boat? You know? And we don't know. So he asked the captain of the big yacht, hey, do you have radio communication or something with those guys? Oh, yeah. He says, find out why they're not getting into the boat. Okay, so the captain calls over to the people in the launch and asks them why they're not getting into the boat. And the answer comes back, the dignitaries are skeptical, sir. And Miscavige hears that. The dignitaries are skeptical. And he goes, the dignitaries? The dignitaries? And he just starts falling all over himself laughing. He goes, the dignitaries are skeptical. Oh, that's rich. He's like hitting me on the shoulder. He goes, did you hear that? The dignitaries are skeptical. And then all of a sudden, he just snaps instantly. He looks at the captain and he goes, tell him to get in the fucking boat. Like that, right? And the captain is just like shocked by that, you know? So he radios over, and sure enough, pretty soon, here they come. Norman gets into the boat. They all get into the boat, and they come over. And as they're getting off of the boat onto the transom of the big yacht, Miscavige is going, the dignitaries are skeptical. You a dignitary, Norm? Hey, Norm, you a dignitary? The dignitaries are skeptical. And he's, you know, he's baiting them with this line of rhetoric, and you could see they didn't think it was funny. They were chagrined. They were ashamed, you know. And that was the first time I noticed, wow, this guy's got a real cruel streak in him, you know. And it just to shame them in front of the local islanders
Yep.
and stuff, you know. And it was just totally gratuitous, you know. And yeah, it was kind of weird. I noticed it and I thought, wow, that's weird. And I just kind of filed it away, you know. But you kind of keep those type of thoughts down, you know, in that environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it became his pleasure cruise boat once a year for the maiden voyage, apparently. And then, of course, they had, you know, we won't go into the story, but then they had Tom Cruise's birthday there and spent $500,000 or whatever crazy amount is, you know, for his birthday party. And that's on Amy Scobie and other people. Mark Headley have covered that. But yeah, no, it was just a waste. They were trying to find something to keep it afloat. And even to this day, you know, who knows what's going on that ship now? I mean, it's usually tied up at dock quite a bit now, from what I understand.
I saw something on Facebook. It was in Aruba recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's expensive to operate a ship, you know.
Yeah.
But food and fuel.
Somebody saw the Freewinds in Aruba and they had a bunch of aftermath cards with them. So they started leaving those around in Aruba.
That's great.
I saw that. Yeah. Well, let me show this short video. We're gonna, and then we'll talk afterwards. This is a story of Don Jason, who was an executive on the Freewinds, and this is his escape story, right, Janice?
Don Jason was an executive in the Flag Service Org in Clearwater and was sent to the ship for punishment. And then this is his story on what happened on the ship.
Okay. And then this is the ship, so everybody can visualize what the ship is that he's talking about here, okay? But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. It's just 6 minutes long, but you want to watch it, and then we'll comment afterwards, okay? All right, so let me go ahead and figure out this. I'll share it, and I'll put it full screen. Hold on one sec. I have to do it over here, sorry.
Was a reason I left, you know? And I'm looking at myself thinking, how did this happen? Why did you do this again? Now you got to go through this whole shit all over again to get out.
When Don Jason left Scientology, he knew how the church would come after him, comb the airports, bus stations, and hotels, track his credit cards, scour personnel files for clues. As church staffers in Clearwater fanned out to their posts one morning in 1996, Jason took to the back roads. Within days, he had set up a low-profile life in Atlanta. Within weeks, the threat of losing family connections brought him back to the church. He sought to make amends and follow the church's procedure for leaving. He reached out to Marty Rathbun for help.
He came back and we did some sec checking and began the process and discussed it with Miscavige, and he said, I want the guy on the ship. Because if you go to the ship, it's the most secure place in the world because you turn your passport into the port captain. So even if you hop the ship in port, you can't get out of the country without a passport.
Jason was the chief officer at the Flag Land Base in Clearwater, a top manager inside the church, and a potential threat on the outside. Aboard Scientology's cruise ship, the Freewinds, Jason says he was under constant surveillance and not permitted to leave. For a time, his room was locked. He was assigned to a program of heavy manual labor. Jason soon decided he wanted no part of the regimen. He insisted on leaving the ship. The staff's answer, do the program.
What I decided to do at that time was kind of go along with it. I'll go along with the program. I'll pretend I'm cooperating. And I'm going to figure out how to get off this ship. The more I looked at that houser, I thought that actually is probably going to be my easiest way. I took a dowel, like a clothes hanger rod. I put the screws in there in between the PVC pipe so that it will roll, but it's not going to roll into my hands. And then I kind of made it a habit of doing the same routine every day. At lunchtime every day, I'd sit out at the same spot on the dock by the houser, so it looked like that's just what he does. I picked my moment. I had the day. I brought that tool. I kind of had it in my shorts, kind of down the side. And I did lunch like I had always done. We got to the island that I had planned to do it, and I was sitting up there in a position to go quickly over. And once it was time, I waited for the timing of the hauser to wherever I wanted it. And then when I jumped over, I kind of got on the line with my legs over on each side. I had my arms. Then when I had one arm hooked, I pulled that rolling pin apparatus that I had made out, put it over like this, hooked it with my arm, dropped it down, and then went on down the line. And as I was going down that hauser, you know, like clockwork, here they come. I could see them coming down, or I could see them out of my corner of my right eye. Here comes security, 3 of them. So I went up and said, okay, I knew this was going to happen. This was planned for. But I was making good speed, got down to the bottom. The last maybe 4 or 5 feet, I had to kind of crawl up that thing, get on the dock, pull myself up, get up to the cab, and I open up the door and start trying to talk to the guy. And they kind of catch me at that point because that's a couple seconds. They catch up. They're trying to kind of keep me from not going into the cab. They're kind of blocking me from going into the cab. They're arguing with me. I'm saying I'm going. I'm talking to the cab drivers. They're in an airport. Take me to an airport. They're telling them I shouldn't leave. I can't leave. I'm there on the ship's authority, that type of thing. And I basically, I'm pushing the guy off, and I end up slamming the door in his hand. And I'm screaming at the cab driver. I eventually just turn to the cab driver and I tell the guy, I says, you know, I'm being held against my will. Take me to a goddamn airport.
I get this call. Don Jason is on a plane heading for Atlanta because he escaped the Freewinds, to which I was, you know, shocked, because how do you escape the Freewinds? You know, how do you get out of a Caribbean country without a passport?
With nothing but a driver's license and some temporary checks from a Florida bank account, Jason managed to talk his way into a plane ticket and through customs. On the first leg of his journey to his mother's home in Milwaukee, Jason says he was hounded by an executive from Scientology's intelligence arm. Then on a layover, Marty Rathbun appeared.
And I followed Don. He went down to the smoking lounge, went in there, lit up a smoke. I walked in and his jaw dropped because last thing, he just got away from Ludwig and suddenly I was there.
Come on back, you know, at this point, we're not trying to keep you, you know, we don't want you on staff anymore. You're good, you can leave, but come on back to Clearwater and we will have you do a routing form. In the process of having this conversation, you know, I realized that I'm missing my connecting flight. I realized what time it is. So I said, you know, time's up, I gotta go. And I started basically jogging to make my connecting flight. Marty was following me down there with me, kind of stride for stride. I give him my boarding pass, I get on the plane, and then at the last minute, he's like, Dave wants to talk to you.
Dave wants to talk to you. He says, well, I don't want to talk to him. Turns around, heads up the airway to the plane. And again, Don thinks this is the end of it, right? Well, 5 minutes later, I get on the plane, and Don's like 3/4 of the way back in the plane, and he's looking at some in-flight magazine, and he puts his head up, and he sees me coming down thing, and I get the second jaw drop. You know, he's like, you know, it's like the Terminator. The guy just keeps coming, you know.
Rathbun went to Milwaukee. The two negotiated a series of confessions and waivers that could be used against Jason should he decide to go public against the church. Jason, too, wanted some assurance that his ordeal was over.
What do I have to do? I said, if I go to Alaska, are you going to follow me? I said, where do I have to go? How far do I have to go? I'm not coming back. I'm not a church hater, but I'm not coming back.
For TampaBay.com, this is Tom Tobin.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some sobering reality right there.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And yeah, and that's how he had to basically escape and get out of there, you know. And they try everything they can to try and keep somebody like him from leaving, and they want him to come back with the purpose of keeping him there. If he had come back, there was a good chance they would try and turn him to stay, you know.
Well, one thing,
Yeah, go ahead, Karry.
a lot of Sea Org members that come in are so young that they don't have checks, they don't have IDs, and it's like, whatever happens to those people, I'm wow. Because even if we had gone on Curacao or Aruba or whatever to, you know, go back to the United States without our passports, me personally, I wouldn't have known what to do whatsoever. I didn't even know what an embassy was, you know, because I joined 15 on staff, 16 the Sea Org, you know, 17 married, you know, so the real life, no internet, you know, real isolation on the Freewinds, don't know what's going on with the rest of the world at all. So yeah, that's really scary.
Yeah. Well, I'm like you, Karry. I mean, even though I'd sailed and I'd heard the word embassy, I only knew that you could go there for a passport. I didn't have any other clue what they did, because when I was coming to the US my first time, we weren't allowed to go to local embassies, because then they'd ask where we're from and we'd have to say the Apollo. So my sister and I flew from Lisbon to Madrid to go to the US embassy. And then the next year we had to fly to Paris to go to the embassy. But all I knew is you just go there to get a visa. I had to get a visa to go to the US. Right. But otherwise, I had no clue. You could go there and ask them to help you, you know, keep these people away from you, get you back to your country. I had no clue that they could do all that.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, it's another form of control. You know, you don't have credit cards, you know, like you said, Janice, you know, most of those people Karry mentioned, they're young. They don't even know what these things are. They don't know what their constitutional rights are. You know, they didn't go to school.
Yeah.
You know, it's just crazy. I just want to mention that video was put together by the Tampa Bay Times as part of the Truth Rundown back in 2009, 2010. And that's where that video came from. So I just wanted to mention that. So
Nice.
Yeah, and I believe it was 1996 that Don left.
yeah,
that was 2 years after we left.
After
Right.
you guys, right?
I can imagine that, things only got progressively worse as time went on,
Yeah.
so,
Well,
Right.
that's what we're going to cover. We've come to the end of this video, and that's what we're going to cover on the next video is how you and Karry actually left Scientology and this organization at that time, right? And so that'll be the next story that we're going to tell. And I appreciate everything that you guys have mentioned and stories you've already told, but then we'll go into your own personal journey after, know,
Right.
how you left, right? Anything else anybody wants to say before I do my business?
Just rock slam the like.
That's right. And then if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel. It helps us get the word out to other people. Okay. We have a lot of people that already watch these videos, but when you subscribe, it helps YouTube push it out to other people who may have an interest in this subject and would like to learn about it. So please subscribe to our channel. We greatly appreciate it. And then also, if you have any questions, you can ask in the comment section down below. We check them religiously, Janice and I do, and we will answer your questions and opinions and comments. So please put them in there. And it's like Janice says, you want to rock slam the like button. And then also, if you want to donate to our channel, you can buy me a coffee. There's a link in the description of the video down below. We appreciate any donation and any help. And so that's there for you as well. And then the final thing I wanted to mention is if you'd like to buy some of our merchandise, you'll see it down below our store. You can get autographed copies of Janice's books. You can get Koala Calm, which is the magnesium drink that Janice sells. You can get coffee mugs. You can get T-shirts and all sorts of stuff. Not Poe on the Go. You can get mouse pads, rock slam those likes. Here's some of the T-shirts and all that. So we're also running a special right now, first of the year, $3 off every shirt. So anyway, if you're interested in ordering any merchandise, you can buy it in our shop down below. Is there anything else to say besides Misha just starting to grow?
We have to salute Janice.
Yeah,
Yep, signing out.
Permission to leave. End of the day.
Permission granted.
Yes, sir.
See you guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you soon.